Welcome back to the Photo Banter podcast. I'm your host, Alex Gagne, and on today's podcast, I speak with photographer John Loomis. John has worked with clients such as ESPN, Golf Digest, Wired Magazine, and Nike, to name a few. In this interview, I speak to John about his recent cover for ESPN Magazine, how he approaches portraiture, and I also speak to John about his newly founded creative studio named Runway 4, in partnership with photographer Rob Tringali and veteran photo director Jim Surber. John is also the host of the Eyeball podcast, where he speaks with a variety of creative professionals. Definitely go check it out. It's available on all podcast platforms. Great conversations on the Eyeball podcast. And I was really excited to speak with John. He's been in the industry for a while and brings a wealth of knowledge and experience in the creative world. So I was really excited to get a chance to speak with him about his journey and all the interesting projects he's been working on as of lately. So I hope you enjoy this conversation, and thanks so much for listening. Well, John Loomis, welcome to the podcast, man. Excited to have you, fellow photographer, fellow podcaster. Anybody listening, go check out John's podcast, the Eyeball podcast. It's kind of, you interview photographers, creatives, all types of interesting people. Definitely go check that out. But to get straight to it, John, I got a bone to pick with you, man.
Oh, good. Cool.
Looking at your website, man, you put your death row meal, your last meal is a turkey club sandwich. Are we still sticking with that?
Yeah, I think so. On the podcast, I had a good friend of mine who's a chef recently, and fancy food is great, but man, when it comes to just like satisfying your soul, I mean, I assume you'd want that for your last meal. I want to go just classic, man, like a really good diner BLT, a really good diner turkey club, man. That's sick. That's awesome. Especially, I upgrade a little bit with the duck fat fries and some decent beer.
Sure,
But
I'll give you the duck fat fries and the other stuff. It was just like, well, I think turkey isn't my top tier meat. I'm going, looking at your pictures, you're doing some sick briskets. I see you barbecuing.
yeah,
I'm like,
that's true. It's funny. Yeah, I like turkey. I mean, Thanksgiving's my favorite holiday. I think it's the most American, most earnest, most authentic way we do it. And so, yeah, I dig the turkey as long as you make it right. I've made a bunch of turkeys in my life. Yeah, I'm sticking with it because like what I love about it, and the same thing in creativity. It's a perfect canvas to then take it a million directions. So you're at a cool place and they go kind of avocado toast with your turkey club. Nice. If someone slides in some pickle, you're like, okay, cool. Yeah. So I love things that can be. It's more about the sort of the vehicle you're going to take me to someplace in than more than like, oh, here we have tonight. You're like, okay, just calm down, buddy. Like, I don't need any truffles on this thing. So yeah, I'm sticking with it.
All right, yeah. Man. I respect it, man. I had to give you a little hard time on that one. But yeah, man, I guess like to start off, like obviously been a crazy year for anybody. But like, how have you been doing? I know you just started a new company, Runway 4, with I believe like Rob Tringali and Jim Surber. Mm-hmm. But just like overall, like how's the last year been for you with everything going on, I guess?
I think anyone who has kids, it's been, in lots of people without kids, it's been very trying. It's tough to keep your headspace in the right place and to see, the potential for greener pastures ahead. Mm-hmm. At the same time, like you said, I've been building a company during this last whole year with my two buddies, Rob Tringali and Jim Surber, who we've, worked together for 15, 20 years. I mean, Rob and Jim have been working together since day one at ESPN. The day that literally Jim Surber was like first day, almost, I think maybe, I don't know if he was an intern or what, but he like, there's this guy, Rob Tringali, you're going to really like working with him. And all that time later, they're still working together. So it's tough to build something when all you see around you is just complete lack of opportunity. Mm-hmm. But that is when it's the most important to be creative and to be problem solving and to build a new path. Like you see these paths disappearing. I think if we're honest with ourselves, these paths have been disappearing for a long time. Now, finally, we're coming to terms with like, well, guess what? Magazines are, depending on what your slant is and what your creative field is, everyone is experiencing some sign of eclipsing of what used to work. And so you got to dig a little deeper. And you got to come up with some new ideas and try to see if you can't fashion a new life which more closely resembles the creative life you've always wanted to have.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who are going to do that, and the people who are going to like say, what if we try this? What if we go this direction? They're going to come out of this, 10 times stronger, and I think more importantly, 10 times happier.
Yeah, because was Runway 4, was that something you guys had talked about before the pandemic, or something that just kind of came up like within the last year, or what was how'd that kind of all come about, and like I guess like what's the overall goal with that company, I guess?
Rob and I have been buddies for a long time, and we talk pretty much weekly anyway for the last several years. Runway 4 came out of those conversations, and this is pre-pandemic. We were trying to build it and maybe even launch it, and this time last year. But you look around, and just a terrible time to launch a company. At least that company. I mean, maybe a Zoom type client company, perfect time. But for a creative company in which we're going to go and experience the world next to other people, not the right time. So, the way we think about it, and it's not complicated. This isn't brain surgery, though Rob doesn't like when I say it's not brain surgery. We love to tell stories, and we like to be authentic with ourselves, and authentic with our clients, our audience, and the people who want to engage in those stories. And so we have all 20 plus years of experience doing this thing, and we're trying to say, well, it's not broken, but there's obviously a room here to hold our clients' hands and find new clients and help them tell stories more dynamically moving into the future. And also better integrate and engage the way your audience is in 17 different channels all at once.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're so used to, at least from a publishing standpoint, I've done, so much of my work in editorial, it's like top down, like it's just like one side just like starts saying this thing, and there's no loop. There's like a letters to the editor page, and that's it.
Yeah.
And that's highly curated. It's not even a real taste of like what they might have thought. I don't think that necessarily, it's not that it doesn't work anymore. It's that there's a better way, and there's a more dynamic way, especially on the technology side for the creation of work, to tell stories with shooting drone stuff, for doing motion stuff, with doing still stuff, with doing a mixture of all those things together. And so that's kind of how Runway 4 was created, to give us a vehicle to not only do more dynamic storytelling, but then to be more in charge of our own creative life, and to be more on the conceptual side, where we're not waiting for a client to call us and saying, oh, we want to do a story on this.
Mm-hmm.
We're calling the client saying, like right now we're heading to baseball season. You're looking around for storylines. We're all sports guys. Runway 4 is not a sports company, but it is a part of what we all will always be passionate about.
Yep.
Coming, we know the storylines. There's Olympics coming up. We're pitching these ideas all over the place, and we're on the front side of it. It's our idea, and we're working in collaboration with the company to help sculpt it. So it's a different position for the image maker to be in.
No, it's interesting. I think it's smart, because I think like for a long time, like still photographers can get stuck in the lane of like, I do everything myself. I don't like work with other people. And, I spent a lot of time like working as like a grip and stuff, like on like TV commercials and broadcast stuff. And you realize that like people that are working in that sphere, it's all collaboration.
Totally.
It's not like just one man. It's like whatever you need to do, whoever you need to team up with to get the job done, that's the thing. So it is cool, and I think smart that you guys are doing that, because like, as with media now, it's not just still photography. Like even within the last couple of years, I've had like just like Bloomberg Business Week, I was just shooting still project, and they're like, yeah, can you just shoot like this little video clips, and this is it's like add-ons and add-ons. So
sure,
I would imagine it's like teaming up. It allows you guys to take on bigger projects and like do more stuff pretty much.
Well, it also, thinking more about where we're moving in the future as an image maker, as a creative, in order to make this work, you have to be more involved with the pre-production and the post-production. So, we've all been, digital retouchers and not really gotten paid for it for, X number of years. With a new company, a lot of those skills, especially when you bring Jim Surber into the program, it's being paid for the whole thing, and for all the different creative decision making and problem solving that we're all have always been doing.
Yep.
So, it does make good business. Now, you know, it's early days. We have lots of excited clients, and we're building stuff, and it's going great. This year everyone sees is going to be tricky. The brands are trying to figure it out. A lot of brands are still not advertising. They just
Hmm.
don't see the value yet. You know, Budweiser got tons of press for like kind of pushing the brakes on the Budweiser brand for the Super Bowl. Now they advertise like 4 other brands, but like people are looking around and saying, I don't know if it's the time right now. So it is tricky, and we're all trying, waiting and seeing a little bit. But I think that I think it's there. I honestly think that I don't know if Runway is the entire future. Obviously, it's not. Someone's going to have another great idea, but I think that there is a lot of opportunity if you open up your mind a little bit and see a different perspective.
Yeah, and I saw you guys. I just got on this thing. I saw you. I think you, Jim, and Tringali. You guys jumped on Clubhouse, this new app. That shit is wild. Like anybody download that app. At first, I was like, "Oh, this is kind of weird." Whatever. To explain it to people is
Well, but
called.
if it's weird for you, then someone who doesn't hear their own voice on the regular, they must be just blown away by it, because that's part of a skill set. But yeah, man, I'm digging it. I was on a Clubhouse just before we jumped on. I was listening to, it seems like it's always Matthew and Tim Tatter talking about something, which is cool. I respect it. Those guys have a lot of experience, and they're sharing it with a lot of young photographers, and that's great. I love us as an industry doing that better, because this idea that, like, I've worked hard, and I have some things I've learned hard over the time, but like, it's so stupid that there's secrets. Like, oh yeah, here's my top secret lighting tip. It's like, it's not top secret. Like, some people maybe get some of that. Maybe Dan Winters can have a couple secrets. That's very hard earned. Everyone else is like, just chill out. Like, it's not, no, don't take yourself so seriously. Just share your knowledge.
Yeah, definitely. It was just so interesting. Yeah, because there's so many photographers on there, and I've only been using it like for a week now. But I've talked to like we've been having all these interesting conversations about people like, what's your experience having a rep? Like, how do you charge? And then like at one point, I was like basically doing like a live interview with like the head of photography for CBS, and just talked to her for like an hour. So it's like.
Nice.
The technology is interesting. Anybody hop on and check it out because it is one of the coolest things I've seen in a while, and I was glad to see you guys were utilizing it. Um, but I guess to
Yeah, I
go,
mean, it's still invite only. So if someone needs an invite, hit me up, hit Alex up,
yeah,
because it's worth joining the conversation. It's worth digging in, because it does seem like, I was talking about this with the podcast I released yesterday with Noah Kalina. We were
mhm,
talking about it. It had been a minute since there had been a new social media network that actually felt valuable and felt like,
yeah,
oh, this might be something you might want to bring into your world.
yeah, yeah. And you definitely there are some rooms that are kind of like you can kind of pick and choose. There's some rooms, there's some bullshit out there, but if you find the right room with a cool group of people, you can definitely learn some stuff. Um, but I guess to go back, man, I was kind of curious, like, how do you kind of initially get into photography? I guess.
It's the old cute girl said she likes photography, and I said I do too. It's that simple. Photography found me in high school. The slightly more exciting story is that I think I signed up for classes late, and it was either journalism one or weightlifting. And the weightlifting was in the old gym, and it stunk, just vile. And I would have picked it if it had not been in the old gym. And but I didn't. I picked journalism one, and then you had to specialize. And a girl named Autumn, who was very pretty, said, "I like photography." I was like, "Me too." So and then it was, it's the same thing. You're in, back in the day, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm over 40. So that was, red lights and dark room and disgusting chemicals and, dirty trays, and seeing a print explode into life in front of you, and,
Yeah.
you know, rolling film in the dark and all that stuff. And so there was magic, like literally magic. And I was hooked, and I've been doing it basically professionally ever since. I mean, I've been shooting, for newspapers and everything else since I was 15. So it's been a long road.
Wow, that's awesome, man. And like, did you end up going to school for photography, or do you just kind of teach yourself, or like how'd that kind of work for you?
I think that, yeah, I mean, I went to school. I went to Missouri. I went to University of Missouri and studied photojournalism and English. And, I learned a lot there. I'm very grateful for my time there and for my instructors there. It's a school I still care about, and I do lectures there on the regular, and I like it. I think that if we're honest with ourselves, the people and the places we really learn from are our colleagues and our friends as we grow up, and especially when you've had as long as a career as I have, and I'm very grateful for it. There's been so many amazing photographers who I've known over the years who were, some of them quite honestly much better than I was, but they didn't want to run a business, or they didn't want to promote themselves, or they didn't want to go through the hoops. And I get it, but that's what my career has been based on. The actual art of photography. I've learned so much from so many along the way. And like I said, with Clubhouse, I mean, what a great education in photography. If you're not someone who is looking at a college to teach you some of that stuff, there is no better teacher than making the billions of bad photographs that I've made.
Yep.
But Clubhouse is a great place to go and listen and just observe and hear just something simple like how much failure it takes for a creative person to start succeeding.
Yeah.
And just understanding like failing is nothing. Just keep pushing.
Yeah.
So it was college for me, and then freelance straight from there. Even though I had done a bunch of newspaper work in college, being journalism school, but it was clear early on that wasn't going to be the way I did it, because I just hated someone being able to send me to a fire at like 10 p.m. at night. I thought it was so stupid. So go ahead. Sorry.
Because what kind of stuff were you shooting at that point? You're studying journalism, but like looking at your work now, it's mostly like it's a lot of portrait based stuff. Like what kind of stuff were you shooting early on, pretty much?
Oh, I was sure I was just about to be a Magnum. Like that was we were all they were seconds away from asking us to join and just gallivant around and wear scarves and shit. So my work was very documentary. It's very personal. There's shades of that still in my work, but I'm come from not humble, but very blue collar family and background, and so I had to hustle from day one. And so I was working for New York Times, like 2 assignments a day if I could get it, and just keeping pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And so the big teacher for me was the market, and if you started working, I started working, when I was 15, but then, start really working in magazines, early 2000s, they're very, there's only a handful at that point, 20 years ago, of documentary assignments left. And I shot a lot of them, but after that, like, I didn't want to shoot conflict, and there wasn't a lot of US based, non-political, regular documentary work. And so my then rep, Redux Pictures, had to literally like just pull the portraits out of me. Like I remember as my portfolio got more and more portrait heavy, they'd be like, "We need more." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like there's like,
what were you kind of like hesitant at first? You didn't want to kind of make the jump to more portrait stuff, or
I think I didn't want anyone to tell me what should like be in my book, more so than I couldn't see it. I couldn't see that I was we're all going to get a million portrait assignments, and that was going to be the thing. And even like, I mean, even the travel work I was doing was portraits, basically, with with like some details and stuff. And so my background is photojournalism, and I still use a lot of those skills, and especially in the way I talk to people and look around, and always trying to find a closed door to figure out what's behind that one, and trying to the way I see things, the way I'm looking for stuff. But it quickly over in the first 10 years of my career, portraits became a bigger and bigger part of it.
have you always been based in the DC area?
No. I'm from my family's from Miami back in the day, and I went to school, like I said, in the Midwest, and then kind of headed back east. And I was in North Carolina for a couple of years, and I was in Miami for a number of years, and then I was in New York for 7 years, something like that, in the city, and then I mean we've been back down in DC. At that point I was married, we had a kid, and my wife had an opportunity down here, so we came down. So DC's been great. It's been I wouldn't have guessed it was going to be this good, because DC's gotten a lot more interesting over the past 10 years, but it's been a great place to be based.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good magazines based out of there. Obviously, Nat Geo's based there.
Sure.
Smithsonian, I think Air and Space Museum, Air and Space Magazine. So there's some cool stuff down there for sure. And as someone who's like lived in a multiple markets, like like so many people think you need to move to New York or LA. Like, what's your kind of opinion, being that you had the experience living in New York, now you're living in DC, like nowadays, do you think you need to live in one of those big markets to start your career? What's kind of your opinion, you think?
I think it depends on where you're at and what you want to do. I mean, if you're passionate about shooting celebrity stuff, then you kind of know where you need to live, right?
Yep.
But if you're an architectural photographer, maybe it doesn't matter. I mean, especially right now after COVID, I think people are going to be really taking a hard look and saying, why am I down the road from a place that I can't ever go to in person again? Is that where I want to be? Now, maybe you do because your friends are there and you love the city and you love the energy, but I think a lot of people will find themselves somewhere else and just, do more travel to get to where they need to go, or, do things a little bit more virtually. So, that's not a creative thing. That's just everyone in general is going to be relocating. Markets, they got a lot more important and regionalized as the virtual sort of thing really came online 20 plus years ago.
Yep.
Photo editors finally were able to see a really good snapshot of who was in Austin, instead of having to know someone who knew someone who knew someone who might know someone who might be down there, or instead of having to put someone on a plane. It turns out there was a lot of great people there. They just didn't know the names. And now there's some of the tools are better or worse, but now it's a lot easier for the people who are hiring creatives to figure out who might be a little closer to that assignment.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, they don't have the money to send anyone for a lot of these things.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I've talked to so many photographers, like especially like in the advertising world. Like, if you have dope work, like they're gonna hire you. They don't really care because like they're just gonna send them the treatment. You'll do the creative call because I know like dudes live in Idaho, dudes live in like Minnesota, and there's people doing it for sure, not living in New York or LA. So I don't think, because I think for a lot of times, like, do I need to move to New York? And I'm just like, I never have. So somehow still been able to make it work, but it's always.
Yeah, I mean, I think you wouldn't be surprised. New York the Northeast has a certain mentality. I mean, Boston has a very particular version of that mentality, but I think the thing's important about the New York idea, and you don't have to live there to get a sense of it, but I would hate for a creative never to experience the vibe and the hustle and
Oh yeah, definitely.
the hunger, like it totally changed the way I saw my work when I moved there and realized, like, man, everyone I know,
Doing
they're
it big.
killers.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
they're absolute killers, and they're not just killers like for the client. They're so excited to get this job and this opportunity to go out there and make great pictures for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And like, they're not just executing this assignment and this creative brief well. They are inspiring their clients to build newer and bigger things with them. And like, that's a totally different level. You start off being like, "Man, I hope I do a good job on the assignment." And then you quickly need to change gears, that it's not about who you're working with today. It's about who you're going to try to be working with tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so, I've been lucky enough to have sort of that realization a few times in my career. And in a way, the new company Runway 4 is that, us saying we got to be working harder for ourselves because there's more in it. We can see the possibility. So like, let's get there.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Dude, you and Tringali, man, you guys get after it, dude. You guys are motivating, man. I see you guys online, man. You guys are getting after it, so it's definitely inspiration for sure.
Rob has a lot of energy. He's kind of like he's like a young dog. He's running after it. Yeah, man, and he's a silver fox. He's getting he's not the youngest man in the room, but you wouldn't know it. He works his butt off.
Yeah,
Good for him.
yeah, no doubt. And I guess in terms of like the approach of your work, like how do you describe like your like I guess style, aesthetic, or your approach to photography? And has it like kind of changed much over the years, or what's kind of your I guess like visual approach if you had to describe it, you think?
Yeah, I always had a hard time encapsulating kind of what it was because it was so dependent on that job, that client, those opportunities, and that kind of stuff. What you can do. I was on call today about a cover shoot I have coming up. What you can do on a cover shoot with a certain kind of client and a certain kind of subject is totally different than what you can do on a feature shoot with a more willing client or more, well, who knows. So
Mm.
what I want to do when I'm on assignment is absolutely just hit a monster home run for my client. I want to create a fan out of them. More so than that, I want to have a good time myself, and I want to feel like I created a moment that was unique, that isn't likely to happen again. I want to share a moment with that subject who has honored me by being with me and has decided to collaborate with me in creating something new. And I really want to, and this comes back to the journalism school, I really want to connect my subject with the audience and make as pure as a connection so that they can really understand why this person is special. And I photographed, I've been blessed to photograph a lot of, people that other people might know, and,
Mm-hmm.
some celebrities and a lot of famous athletes and all the world leaders and all these other people. And I've photographed a ton of people no one's ever heard of. And I've been excited to meet all of them
Yeah, man.
because,
The Frog Kings, dude. The Frog Kings are kings, man. Look at these photos right now.
dude, that was some late night stuff. Yeah, you're talking about a Field and Stream story about like the most legendary frog hunters in upstate New York. Like, it was literally, I mean, it's basically Canada. I think it was like 4 miles from the border of Canada.
Yeah.
Like, that was like, we started to shoot at like 2 a.m. That was a long one.
Yeah, but this goes back to what you say, like you photographed all these famous people, which is cool, but there's just like so many interesting personalities and stories to tell out there. And it's just like interesting.
Absolutely.
Like I like that thing. I was like, I would never know that was like a thing, you know?
Of course. And those guys are amazing. And to me, you were looking around and like, man, social media is just filled with like people are so hungry to get that attention,
Mm-hmm.
which is cool, man. I mean, I want attention. I want people to recognize me for my talents. But what I really love is someone who is so themselves they can't even help it. That's just, they are them. And a lot of celebrities you meet are that.
Yeah.
They have their thing, and that's why they got there. And that's cool. I love it. A lot of other people, are just so uncomfortable in their skin, and meet people who are just living out loud. You're just like, oh my God, look at that. That is beautiful. And, that's always when I talk about like, my favorite assignments and my favorite stuff. It really always truly has been the next one. I mean, there's been a couple that have lived longer in my memory and been special because of, whatever I like in my life and that kind of stuff. But really, the journalist is always so excited for the next adventure, and that's been with me the entire time. Like, I love what's next. And
Yeah.
so, and that's, I mean, it's kind of what has allowed me to keep going. It's just like the idea that I might be headed on a new adventure tomorrow, the next call, the next pitch that might be greenlit, like being able to say yes to an idea is so cool. That's always been the thing that's been propelling me forward.
Yeah, definitely. I agree, man. Like I always think like I always think like what's this year gonna bring? Like I was looking at my work from like last year. Like obviously this year's had like different challenges to make work or whatever. But yeah, that is the cool thing about photography. It's like, damn, what's down the line? Like who am I gonna photograph? Who am I gonna meet? Where am I gonna go? And that's what kind of keeps it exciting.
Totally.
And one thing, like you've been doing this a long time. Do you walk away from like every shoot like completely satisfied? Or is there times where you kind of second guess like creative decisions, or there is sometimes where obviously you go in with the best intentions, but sometimes there's this stuff that's kind of out of your control, you know?
Yeah. Anyone who tells you that every single one of their shoots have been a success is absolutely fucking lying to you.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, a good baseball player. Sorry to keep making sports references. A good baseball
Hey, I
player
like
gets
sports, man.
300.
I got some golf questions coming, so like
Okay. Well, all right. I can tell you what the people I photographed will tell you to do. I won't be able to tell you anything myself. My golf handicap is not impressive, but
either.
yeah, man. I mean, I work really hard to have an opportunity to make something special.
Yeah.
That's all I am ever really like guaranteed, is an opportunity to find a way in and find a connection, and then find a format, then find the right location, then find the right environment, then find the right moment, then find the right joke to make that moment that just like pop them out of their head. They're no longer be photographed. They're just in the world.
Yep.
That doesn't happen every time. Not every subject is ready. Not every subject is dressed in a way that's going to be conducive to a great photograph, or it's hot, or it's sweaty, or the client has a bad idea, or my song and dance didn't work today. They're not into it. They're not buying it. I've had, the thing that, you get haunted by. Haunted is a strong word for it, but you look back on shoots you had in the years past, you're like, my God, I can't believe anyone was happy with this. Like, are you kidding me? Like,
oh,
there's so
definitely,
much
man.
more orange to squeeze in that shoot. Like, what the God? How did I not see? Why didn't a step left? And like, it's the same thing as when you're looking at someone else's work in a magazine. You're seeing the opportunity of working with some person you've always been excited to, like, to meet or to photograph or to engage with. You're like, man, that's what happened. Like, damn. I mean, I don't know the full story. Of course I don't. I don't know. I'm sure it was difficult. I'm sure this happened. I'm sure that happened. They always do. I don't have any shoots that don't have challenges, but that, that problem solving and that changing gears and just rolling with it, that is this job. And so, it's one of the things I think about a lot as we have, God, thankfully gotten more creative and more unique and more diverse voices into our industry over the past couple of years. We have to support them, both, other photographers and, their clients, to be in the best opportunities to tell these stories, because some of these people haven't had enough at bats to, know, oh, this is going bad. How am I going to fix it? How am I going to change gears? How am I not going to be hard on myself? And, that it takes a long time to get comfortable when things start going crazy. And so, I'm excited to see some of these new diverse voices get more experience and then, like, really just start slaying. That'll be very exciting to see.
Yeah, I agree. Cause like we work in the creative business. You always hear the word creative, creative, creative. And if you just have the same people doing it all the time, that's not really creative. And it's like it's cool when like different people come on board and you can see what they bring to it and like see where photography goes, because it's just interesting seeing like different trends and different techniques. And like, yeah, man, I'm always excited. Like, honestly, like I get hyped talking to younger photographers more than anything, because they're this like so pumped on it, So yeah,
Yeah,
I totally
absolutely.
agree. It's good to have different new voices and see where it goes.
Hey, I apologize. Let me 1 second.
You're good, dude. It's all good. I was excited to talk to you. You just shot a cover for ESPN. I was just kind of curious. It was a real creative cover. You got some really good stuff out of it. I was kind of curious. What was your kind of approach to that photo and how that kind of all came about to you? It came about for you.
I was thinking about that recently because a friend of mine was like, "Wait, where did that come from?" And I identified exactly where it came from, and it came from when I was like 16. That little paper where I grew up in Tallahassee, Florida, the Democrat, which still exists, although I've worked for some other papers which do not exist anymore. That's how old I am. There was this, there were great photographers there, and it was a college town, so it was, we really pull it out when it was like FSU preview, FAMU preview stuff. And I remember them doing this like beautiful continuous light with a strobe pop blur thing. And the colors of the jerseys of those two teams are like are green and what is it? Green and red and green and orange and red and gold. And there was this opportunity to do something beautiful. And when this project came in, this is an athlete who isn't going to be in the jersey she currently wears. This is all about her future. So we can do anything we want. And for some reason, the first thing that popped in my head was what if we started doing some color blurs, and what if we do this and what if we do that? And I actually had a hard time finding a lot of reference stuff that I was kind of into. So it was a lot of, luckily I'm working with a client who I've been working with for a long time, so they trusted me. But we just started playing, and when you're doing this stuff, I mean, you can tell there's I think we should change clothes 6 or 7 times. So It's a long day. It's a big day, and it's a lot of technical stuff because you're moving around, you're doing the thing, you're trying to then put it into one dynamic frame. Maybe some of it's post-production in terms of different changing colors. You have to be totally locked down, which I hate. I hate locking down.
Yeah.
I like to be very fluid. I like moving with the athlete. I like badgering them. I like talking to them. I like challenging them. I had like 3 different tripods rolling for the different parts of different things. We had taped off this, taped off that. We have like tons of continuous lighting, tons of strobe. It was a big day, but luckily
were you shooting continuous lights because you had a motion aspect to it, or that was just part of your technique, I guess?
Well, these pictures, and as you can see, there's that blur.
Yeah,
that's how you get that blur.
Okay.
So you're painting them, and they're moving through space with the continuous light, and then at the peak action, you're choosing, because I'm shooting on bulb, and the peak action second rear sync, I'm snapping it and getting that captured moment. So it's actually a lot of back to like the very beginning for me. It was a lot of magic. It was a lot of like,
Yeah.
okay, what's going to happen here? And then figuring out, you could have done this 10 times. It changes every single time you're doing it in a different environment. So
Hmm.
it's what's will be fun is this next cover I'm doing will be totally different, but sort of some of the same inspired elements.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, I have learned and not learned a lot of things, and so we'll see how it all works out for the next one.
Nah, it seemed really fun. Like, cause like when, people listening, like when the client ESPN reached out to you, like, did they have a lot of creative input in like what they wanted, or like how did it get to the point where this is what you were doing, I guess?
I think so. My job is not just to press a shutter button on a camera or record video on a video camera or to fly a drone or to make a GIF or do whatever else. Runway 4 and my job before it, our currency is ideas.
Mhm.
That's where it starts. So if you come to me, there's already a concept. Sometimes there's already even a story, but then that's a launching place. And then I'm going to throw everything I can at it to see what else it can be and how we can crystallize and distill or explode and change the narrative we've already created. So, you know, I knew who she was. I knew what was going on. And I knew, I've shot so much basketball for them and over the years, I knew that it was such a great opportunity to create these dynamic motions. And so because things are now, motion covers, it seemed like it was a great fit. And
Mhm.
so there was all my creative. I mean, they of course had to say, yeah, that seemed like a good idea, but I was able to paint a good picture for them that they could see what it could be. And then, on a project like that, you know, there's a lot of it is created in camera, but you're never working in the perfect environment. So, we're working in a gym. Luckily, we had a gym locked down for a whole day. There's tons of setup. It was a really long shoot, but you can't ever make it dark enough. You're not shooting in like a black box studio.
Yeah.
So, a big credit goes to in this shoot. That was all my creative vision with my retoucher, Zach Vitale, who is, former Boston guy himself and a really good friend. He had a huge role in playing to like capturing and sort of making this all come together in this special way.
Yeah. And like had you done like a test shoot like prior to the actual shoot date to kind of like get an idea if this would work, or did you just kind of ran with it the day of, I guess?
Um, to make my clients nervous, I hate test shoots. The problem is, and this might not be a problem for everybody, it is for me. If it's not real, it's not real.
Yeah.
And so like I don't really like any gear. I have no interest in gear. I'm not a gear guy. I only like to tell stories. So I get in a room and I start trying to solve problems, tell stories, and figure it out. Sometimes that's bit me in the ass because I'm literally using a new lens and it comes to find out it doesn't work and never did. It was just my box in my office the whole time.
Yeah.
That's a problem. Usually when I buy gear, it sort of works. I don't know how to work it perfectly, but I can make it work. You work long enough and you have to find ways to surprise yourself. You have to put yourself kind of into the boiling water before you figure out how to make it work. And I probably should get mature enough at some point to not do it this way, but I kind of like it. I want to kind of get in over my head and then start making choices and experiencing. I used to work with this really wonderful photographer named Adam Rust, and I didn't understand it at all at the time because I was like 19. But he would get to an assignment for like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours before it started, and he just would walk
Yeah.
and sit down and experience things and look around and be inspired. And we'd be in the office, and then this is a newspaper, which this one no longer exists, the Birmingham Post Herald. And he's like, well, I'm heading out. I was like, oh, I thought your thing's at 6. He's like, yeah, but I was gonna go sit there. I was like, what in the fuck are you talking about? And now I totally get it. Like,
You
like
don't feel
if
rushed.
this job is not for me,
Yeah.
if I can't find satisfaction and life and energy and fun and spontaneity there, I don't want to do it.
Mhm.
So I have to work in a way that makes me feel it. And then I can feel that subject and like be grateful for them being there and the collaboration and everything else. I have to be in it in order to do it and to do it well. And because especially when it's like because I've done so much sports, there's no faking it. And I see a lot of photographers shooting sports, and they're happy to be working with such a graceful athlete who has this form, which is, we see as being ideal,
Yep.
but they clearly don't know sports at all. And they deal with them in this very awkward, weird way. Like, it's like, oh, well, they're a ballet dancer. Maybe. And that's cool. Like, whatever. But like, it always used to drive me crazy when like New York photo editors would get like some fashion person and have like do sports, and they're like, oh, what? Look at this. I mean, sports, who cares, right?
Yep.
It's like, well, someone probably does. And so, yeah, I want to engage. I want to respond. And so that's part of the way I need to deal with it.
No, definitely. And one thing I was kind of curious in talking to you about,
Yeah,
like,
Alex, I can't hear you right now, buddy.
oh, can you hear me now? Sorry about that, John.
Fine.
One thing I was interested in talking to you about, like, obviously, you've had a long history with ESPN. You've done a lot of work with Golf Digest. I was just curious, maybe you could talk a little bit about like how you've been able to, like,
buddy, you're breaking up again.
Shit, man, what the heck? Sorry, man, that's literally never happened to me. Weird.
Yeah, it's a little, it's a tiny stacky, but that's better. Yeah, it's a little more even now.
Yeah, I think I might need to get a new XLR cord or something. Sorry. Hopefully it keeps going here.
Yeah, no worries.
We'll keep rocking. I got a couple more minutes to go. No, I was just saying, you've had a long career working with ESPN and Golf Digest. I was just kind of curious, like, how have you been able to like maintain those relationships over the years? Because that's a big job just in itself as a freelance photographer, is like maintaining those relationships with the editors and who's working there, where they go. Like, how have you been able to maintain a long relationship with some of those clients you've had over the years?
Well, some of it speaks to the incredible editors who've had these long careers because they're so great at their jobs.
Yeah.
And, I mean, like before Jim and I were in a company together, I mean, we worked together for 15 plus years. So that's a big part of it. And they have, there are some clients who have given me opportunities to do really well for them. And those are the ones you tend to work longer with, because I've had other clients who you just never really got that job where you can actually like show them what you can do. Everything's just so small. You're like,
yep,
is this all you want? And they're like, perfect. And you're like, I bet you'll never call me again. And they're like, yep. And like, okay, great. I recently had the idea, I wanted to send resignation letters to clients who haven't hired me in like 10 years. Like, I've now resigned. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So that's part of it. The other part of it is that I just take it super seriously, that if I have an opportunity, it's going to be an act of God that has to come in between me and getting it done.
Yeah.
Especially on some of these really big high profiles things that are covers and everything else, like I'm gonna get it. And so that's what it sounds dumb. I mean, like, I'm not saving the world. My wife is actually in medicine, and she has an actual effect on people's lives. And
she's got a real job, man. She's got a real job. Where is that here?
Man. real job in it.
Yeah.
And if she's at work right now, if she knew it was on a podcast, she'd be like, oh, that's nice. That's great. Good job. So, for what it is, and I love my job. I take it seriously. The clients who have given me opportunities, I work even harder for.
Yeah.
And it's tricky, because I've had a lot of times where, I have a client who, isn't for real, and it's this limited budget, and they want, they'll pull pictures of my website, and they're like, oh yeah, this ESPN project is really cool. Like, what if we do something like that? It's like, no,
yeah,
you don't get that.
Yeah.
Because that client, not only have I, done, I don't know how much money I've done with ESPN over the years, millions, probably something like that.
Yeah.
And I will run fully through a concrete wall for them if I can. And so that's what it is. And it takes a photographer being serious enough and caring enough to make sure they're absolutely doing everything in their power to make it work. And that means not just performing and executing the thing that was possible, but constantly coming up with new ideas about something they never expected. It's something I've talked about in my podcast a bunch of times. And, I think one of the people who we see and always need to remember how special it was is like Chris Buck. He famously for years would have a great shoot, And then also in the box of prints, going, him and I have been around forever. He's been around, I think, even a little longer than I have. Also, there was this giant, beautiful surprise of something unexpected and wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets right back to not just performing your job admirably, but inspiring your client to want to work with you again immediately.
Yeah.
And they don't have to call me. There's a lot of people in the world who can do it for them, and a lot of people, quite honestly, who will do it for them a lot cheaper than I can.
Yeah.
Or will, I should say. I can do whatever I want. I take it very seriously what my role is, and I try to really come with some very cool ideas, some of which, I had a meeting today, a lot of cool ideas. We can't do most of them, but I mean, one of the ideas was to wreck a Lambo in a sand trap. Probably not gonna be able to do that.
I like it, Loomis. You going big, man. You going big.
I mean, it's probably not gonna be like a Gregory Crutzen set. We're gonna shut down a golf course for for a month.
Yeah.
But you got to throw it out there, because what did they say? Fuck, man.
Yeah. Yep.
I think we might be able to do that. You're like, okay, if you don't have a big idea, then no one's ever going to go with your second biggest idea.
True.
You have to have something that someone is going to say no to in order for anyone to be able to say yes to what's a little bit weird but a good idea. So I've always thought about not just what I want to do, but what's the really crazy thing they're definitely going to say no to, so that I hope they'll say yes to the thing that I really want to do.
Yeah, it's just over delivering, and this kind of, it's not just like you're not just getting hired to take the picture. It's like, what can you deliver to your client? And I try to do as much as I can, whatever it is. If I got to handle all the production myself, I'm happy to do it and take stuff off their plate, because they're busy with other stuff. So whatever I can do to deliver some service or technique or whatever.
The other part of it is, and this kind of sometimes bridges, and holds hands with the ideas, is, I have my photography has a point of view, and that's long and hard to develop. To do a true point of view, that if someone opens up a magazine or sees a key art for a show, they're like, that looks like Loomis shot that. The way you respond to things and your personality through your imagery or through your creativity, you have to cultivate that, and you have to keep doubling down on that, and you have to have something that they can only find with you, because the tools now are so good. We all have these amazing tools. My iPhone is freaking amazing. All this stuff is amazing. So it's not about that. There's a lot of people in the industry who are like, oh, dude, I can do this, I can do that and that. Cool, that's great. What do you want to say though? And how do you want to say it? And I'm like, well, I don't know. It's right. So we have to recognize, personal vision is one of those kind of real touchy-feely kind of terms that we talk a lot about in journalism school and developing kind of things, but it's real, man. You listen. I love music. I've always loved music, and for years I kind of wanted to try to figure out how I can make photographs or some creative piece that feels like a Tom Waits song. And something like a Tom Waits song, instantly, not even just in your brain, but through your whole body, who it is and what it means. And it doesn't have to be that, and it doesn't have to be tortured either. It doesn't have to come from some dark place, but it needs to come with impact, and it needs to come with identity, and it needs to be something that you need to say.
Yeah, definitely. You have a perspective.
I lost you again.
Shit, man. You lose me again? 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me now? Yeah, I was excited to talk to you, man. Eyeball Podcast. Everyone check it out. Really another cool creative podcast, photographers, creatives. What was kind of your goal with starting Eyeball, I guess?
It's selfish, just purely selfish. All that money in podcasts.
Yeah, I'm getting
I dude, so rich. Yeah, man. It's a joy to talk to you today, and it's having more creative conversations. I spent a lifetime wearing black shirts, being in galleries, drinking free beers, complaining about what this client did, why someone didn't call me, the shoot didn't go well, blah blah. That stuff's all bullshit, man. I want to talk about making new things, being passionate, and enlarging my idea of what creativity can be for myself.
Yep.
And so I, with my friends and with people I didn't even know, I wanted to have better and more interesting conversations. And I wanted to try to see if I can make a podcast, which kind of in my head sounded a little bit like a New Yorker article where it just takes all these weird twists and turns and you might learn something unexpected.
Yeah.
And so Eyeball was born of that. And, I mean, hats off to you, man. You're doing a great job with Photo Banner. You're hustling, and I know it's a ton of work.
Yep.
And it's been really fun. I've really enjoyed it.
I don't know about you, but I have a harder time interviewing my friends than I do like some person I've never met before. It's because I at least with my friends, it's because you normally like I don't know, it's like a different like off camera you talk different. It's just for me, I have a harder time interviewing my friends than strangers, I guess.
I don't know. I mean, I think what people really want in a podcast, and this isn't a photography thing, but it's like people just want a good hang. I mean,
Yeah.
no one really gives a shit about photography or movies or like people just want to hang out with someone for an hour or two.
Yeah.
Everything's cool. We're gonna have a couple laughs. Might learn something. So that's kind of how I view it. I mean, if in the middle of a serious conversation about like whatever devolves into some fart jokes, great.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all in for that kind of stuff. So I try not to take it too seriously, and I try to be open to the opportunities that conversation can have, especially with someone I don't know very well. It is somewhat easier, but I also then listen back to episodes with people I didn't know very well, and I didn't know that I learned something new about them, and I didn't even know to ask about it.
Yeah.
If I know them, like we both have interviewed Hetherington,
Oh
and
yeah.
you had a good interview with him, but I'm listening to it and I know all these inside stories. I'm like, no, he should have fucking asked him about this, that, and this. And
No, that's
so
true.
I can get things out of Andy that he might not necessarily want to like podcast about.
No,
He's
that's a
not
good point.
shy,
Yeah.
but so I'm always passionate about just the same thing with photography about not necessarily finding a story no one's told before, but getting to that little nugget that like shines light on their creative process and learning something about someone. And ultimately, it's the same thing with creativity. I'm learning something about myself.
Yeah.
We're always seeing the world and other people's experiences in the mirror and the lens of our own lives, and that's the coolest thing. I mean, that's why I love being a portrait photographer. I love meeting people, man. I love seeing how we tick and then figuring out, oh, maybe that's why I am the way I am.
Yeah.
So
No,
it's a cool job.
No.
It's not an easy job. I mean, there are a lot of podcasts, but the numbers of podcasts have reached to, I mean, you're way past where I'm at, but like, I think I'm on the upper 20s or something like that.
Yeah.
Dude, like they're almost like 95% of all podcasts have like less than 10 episodes.
Oh, really? Yeah, most people. Yeah. Honestly, I don't expect to do. It was never. I just love doing it. Like getting to talk to photographers is the funnest
Totally.
thing. I guess one more point on the podcast. What's your like dream guest? Is there anybody like any photographer, creative, like pipe dream? Like who would it be?
Oh, my format's a little differently than yours. Like every photographer isn't necessarily a good guest for me, even the people who I really admire their work. It's more about particular things they're working on that inspire me or I think might inspire someone else. And so a lot of it has to do with people in transition. A lot of the conversations I've been having recently are, like this great photographer in Colorado I recently had on, Jamie Kripke, who is very talented, super great, but he just started a clock company. And like photography isn't a defined set of skills which is only good for one thing. Creatives can solve and tackle challenges of any kind.
Yep.
And can pivot and change and grow and scale and do whatever they want to do. And so part of the story that I've hoped my podcast has been telling, not just in photography but creative wide, is that we are all responsible for our own creative and personal and happy lives. Like there's no one telling you what to do. You have to be the one that builds your bridges and your paths forward.
Yeah.
And so we're constantly saying, well, I can't do that, because it's like, well, maybe, but maybe you can.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I mean, so the brave things that creatives do to me are inspiring. So the conversations I want to have are really based on that. There's a lot of people I'd love to have on, but I kind of love the way it's gone, like where I just like get inspired. Like I read something, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like the person I most want to have on next um, is Norman Jean Roy,
Oh yeah.
the famous portrait fashion photographer,
Yeah.
who's he's become a baker. He's
Yeah,
a
I heard
full-time
about that.
baker in Hudson Valley. And I got to learn kind of the nuts and bolts of that, and like what he's learned and not doing it, and how what he used to do is related to what he's doing now. Like there's so much shared passion for detail stuff and portraiture and making bread.
Yep.
He's funneling his creativity in a new thing, and it's a new way. I want to hear what that's like. So hopefully I'll be able to reach out to him and get him on. But it's stories like that. It's less about names and more about the idea, the story, like what could be. And they don't all work out. I mean, some of the podcasts I've done I like these people, I'm great, but I didn't get them to the place I needed to go. Just like a photography assignment. Sometimes it was great, like they look great, but did I get them anywhere? Maybe not.
Yeah,
But
and it's just like such a I'm still learning like how to like being able to communicate and like talk to people and like whatever you want to call it, an interview, or if you want to call it a conversation. It's like a real skill. And like I mean I've done it for a few years now, but I still like I'm still trying to figure it out, because people that do it really well, man. It's like anything else. You're good at basketball, you're good at photography. People that are good at like conducting interviews. It's really interesting craft, and but it's fun.
yeah, earlier today I was seeing on Twitter that people were giving some interview tips to Oprah after her like royal interview. Now I don't care anything about royals at all. I couldn't care less.
Yeah.
Though they seem like particularly very nice people. And people were coming like, really, you're giving Oprah interview tips? She's a billionaire because of her interviewing.
She's done like 10,000
like
of them.
she's the OG of this. Certainly, actually, that's not fair. She's definitely not the OG.
But yeah.
But she certainly knows what she's doing. And if you listen to her, one of the things that I'm always love in interviewing and in journalism and storytelling in general, she has these really long pauses and talks slowly. And I try, I always get excited and I start spitting out words. I'm not making any sense at all. Then I'm editing it later and I'm like, damn, what the hell was I trying to say? And when I'm being thoughtful and I'm slowing down, I'm actually like getting to it. That's rewarding. That's something that I can come back to. I'm like, okay, that wasn't bad.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's interesting for sure. Yeah, and definitely anybody listening, go check out the Eyeball podcast for what's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and basically
Everywhere.
anywhere.
All of them. Yeah.
All of them. But I guess to wrap up, John, like what's next for you, man? What's got you inspired? What are any goals for the work moving forward? What's next, man?
Yeah, it's more Runway, more big stuff coming with that. We're excited to get our first dozen clients going and getting some new projects built, and really figuring out how all those different nuts and bolts of that company work. That's really exciting. Personally, I have I'm still doing the same thing. I'm still shooting editorial and advertising work.
Mhm.
Eyeballs kicking along, and dude, I just want to get into some warmer weather, just be outside
For real, dude.
get the grill started, I'm looking forward to some warmth. I'm looking forward to some being outside. I'm just looking forward to kind of getting into this year and having us all just being able to let our breath out a little bit and find some energy and just get after it.
Right on, man. Well, John, man, it's a real pleasure talking to you, dude. I'm glad we linked up, and really appreciate it.
I appreciate it, Alex. Thanks for the time.
So there you have it. That was the John Loomis interview. Just want to thank John so much for taking the time to come on the podcast. It was real exciting speaking to him about all the new projects he's been working on and his new creative studio, Runway 4, with Rob Tringali and Jim Surber. Really interesting stuff they got going on over there. So can't thank John enough. But definitely go check out John's work at johnloomis.com, as well as definitely go give him a follow on Instagram at John Loomis. And you can also check out their new Runway 4 creative studio website at runway4.com. As well, definitely go check out John's podcast, the Eyeball Podcast. It's available on all podcast platforms. Really great conversations, so definitely go check that out as well. And as always, I'll be having weekly podcasts every week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, as well as the Photo Banter YouTube page. So definitely go check us out on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button, as it'd be much appreciated. And as always, thanks so much and take care.